Sometimes you don't feel hurt by a friendship. You feel subtly drained by it. You leave the conversation replaying what you said, wondering why something felt slightly off, even though nothing bad happened. Psychology suggests that our minds are incredibly sensitive to emotional inconsistencies. You can be laughing with someone, sharing stories, even texting daily, and still sense a quiet imbalance you can't immediately explain. It's not dramatic betrayal, it's not open conflict. It's something quieter, a pattern of interactions that feels performative instead of mutual. And what makes this confusing is that on the surface, everything looks fine. They comment on your posts. They show up to events. They say supportive things. But internally, something doesn't fully settle. If you've ever felt this, you're not overthinking. You're likely noticing subtle social cues your intuition is still processing. Psychology often highlights how humans rely not just on words, but on congruence, the alignment between tone, action, consistency, and emotional presence. When those don't quite match, your nervous system can register tension before your logic does. This isn't about labeling people as fake in a dramatic sense. Most people aren't malicious. But sometimes friendships exist more for convenience, validation, or social positioning than genuine connection. And if you're someone who values depth, authenticity, and emotional clarity, you may be especially sensitive to that gap. This video isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone around you. It's about understanding subtle patterns that can create emotional confusion. Because when you can name what feels off, you stop blaming yourself for feeling it. And often, the signs aren't loud. They're small, repeated, easy to dismiss. But once you see them clearly, you start to understand why certain friendships energize you, and others quietly exhaust you. When you start noticing subtle imbalances in friendships, it can feel unsettling. But psychology suggests these patterns often reveal more about the dynamics than about you. What might feel like a flaw in your perception can actually be a meaningful signal of how attention, effort, and intention are distributed. Many people assume that friendship is always effortless and perfectly reciprocal. But in reality, human connection is layered and often uneven. Some friends give selectively, offering validation when it benefits them, showing concern when convenient, or maintaining distance when engagement requires vulnerability. This is not necessarily conscious manipulation. Often, it's simply a reflection of priorities, emotional bandwidth, or social habits. A key factor psychology highlights is emotional resonance. Authentic connection tends to leave both people feeling recognized and energized, while connections that are more performative or conditional often leave one person subtly depleted. Another pattern involves consistency of behavior across contexts. Genuine friends tend to maintain alignment between words and actions, both in public and private and across time. When someone says they care but consistently fails to follow through, your mind can pick up on that mismatch before your heart does. Selective engagement is also common. Some friends only appear when it serves their social comfort or status, rather than genuinely participating in your life. These behaviors, small as they are, accumulate into patterns your intuition notices, even if they're not dramatic enough to confront directly. Psychology calls attention to these cues because they inform your sense of relational safety. Your internal system is finely tuned to detect when emotional energy is being reciprocated versus when it is being spent unevenly. This awareness doesn't make you cynical. It simply helps you navigate relationships with clarity. Recognizing these patterns early can help you differentiate between friendships that truly nourish you and those that are primarily transactional, without needing to dramatize or label anyone. By observing how effort, attention, and vulnerability flow, you start to understand not only others, but also the values you hold for yourself in connection. And that understanding creates a subtle but powerful shift from feeling passively unsettled to feeling consciously attuned to the quality of your social world. There are several recurring patterns psychology often points to when it comes to friendships that feel off, and noticing them doesn't mean you're paranoid. It means your social intuition is finely tuned. One common sign is inconsistency in communication. They may check in enthusiastically one week, and then disappear the next without explanation, leaving your mind replaying what went wrong. Another is conditional support. They're eager to celebrate. your wins publicly or join when it's convenient, but avoid being present during quieter, more vulnerable moments. A third pattern is subtle boundary crossing. They may make demands on your time or emotional energy without offering the same in return, creating a sense of imbalance that's hard to articulate. Fourth, social mirroring can be superficial. They often reflect your opinions or interests outwardly, but without genuine curiosity, leaving interactions feeling performative rather than reciprocal. And fifth, there's a tendency toward selective disclosure. They may share personal stories or struggles in ways that demand attention, yet seldom allow space for your authentic experiences, creating a one-sided rhythm. Each of these behaviors, small on its own, can accumulate into a relational tension that feels exhausting or hollow. Psychology suggests that noticing these patterns isn't about being judgmental. It's about emotional calibration. Your nervous system is wired to detect subtle cues of reciprocity and authenticity, even if your conscious mind hesitates to label them. Everyday examples make this clearer. You text a friend about a stressful day and get a vague, "hope you're okay," while they expect your excitement when they share theirs. You invite them to an event they previously promised to attend, and they cancel last minute repeatedly. You notice their compliments are often tied to appearances or achievements rather than deeper acknowledgement of your character or thoughts. These patterns don't mean you're overanalyzing. They show that relationships operate on energy exchange, and your mind is sensitive to how that energy flows. Understanding these cues can be empowering, helping you recognize which friendships leave you emotionally enriched and which quietly drain your resources. Over time, this recognition becomes a skill of discernment, noticing subtle misalignments without assuming ill intent, yet still protecting the space you need to feel genuinely connected. This awareness fosters both emotional clarity and personal boundaries, allowing your relationships to reflect the reciprocity and authenticity you value. Recognizing subtle signs of imbalance in friendships doesn't mean something is wrong with you. Psychology suggests it often reflects heightened awareness, sensitivity, and emotional intelligence. People who notice these cues tend to value depth, reciprocity, and authenticity in relationships, which can make superficial patterns feel particularly draining. This awareness allows you to differentiate between friendships that nourish your emotional life and those that subtly deplete it without needing to confront or judge anyone. Over time, you may notice that certain relationships consistently leave you feeling energized, seen, and heard, while others create quiet tension or emotional fatigue. That distinction isn't about superiority or criticism. It's about understanding your needs and the rhythms that support your well-being. There's a reflective dimension here, the realization that friendship, like any meaningful connection, is a dance of giving and receiving, and noticing when the steps are out of sync is a natural part of relational insight. It's also a reminder that emotional attunement is a skill, honed by experience, observation, and intuition, and that feeling subtly off balance can signal nothing more than your ability to perceive nuance. In that quiet awareness lies depth, the capacity to observe without overreacting, to feel without assuming blame, and to recognize patterns without needing immediate resolution. You are not broken for noticing these subtleties. You are engaged with them, reflecting on them, and learning from them. The people who show small but persistent signs of inauthenticity are not enemies. They are simply part of the spectrum of human behavior, which your perceptive mind naturally detects. This insight can cultivate empathy for yourself and others while preserving your emotional energy. So, if you felt drained, confused, or quietly unsettled in some friendships, it may simply be your mind and heart, observing the quality of interaction and guiding you toward clarity. Take a moment to reflect on which connections leave you feeling truly seen, and which ones quietly take more than they give. Not to judge, but to understand your relational landscape more fully. And if exploring the psychology behind human connection, subtle social patterns, and emotional awareness resonates with you, you can continue to engage with more content like this, at your own pace, thoughtfully and with curiosity about the nuanced ways we relate to